I didn't know I was short until somebody said like, "Oh, well, I only date men over 6 feet tall," and I was like, "Well, screw you." All right. So anyway, so the next thing I want to mention is let's go back to Apple. Another reason why Apple is dominant, despite the fact that they don't that they're just not very innovative, is that there's something called the endowment effect. And this is the theory that says that basically once people own something like an iPhone, then they tend to psychologically overvalue it, even if you have competitors that are technically better. And that might be what they call the first mover advantage, which relates to the switching cost. So a lot of times, so like for example, ChatGPT has an advantage in the chatbot slash AI market, mainly because they put their stuff out first. A lot of people will dance to the person that brought them to the party. So it's not always about the features of something. It might just be the emotional attachment. This is my first. This is what I'm connected to. So ultimately, when you can be first to market, that's a big deal. So Apple was the first one to create this culture where we're all carrying our phones around. And so now a lot of us are still connected to Apple, even though I have an Android, and I can tell you my Android can do a lot of things my Apple cannot do, and it integrates into other systems better than my Apple does. Also, there's something called network effects. This is Metcalfe's law. Metcalfe's law basically says that the more people use a product, the more valuable it becomes. So for Apple, you've got iMessage, you've got the AirDrop, you've got FaceTime, and you eventually over time just get trapped inside the ecosystem. So what I noticed is that a lot of these tech companies, they're trying to build these walled gardens, these ecosystems. Microsoft has an ecosystem. They've got their own little like Microsoft Teams and they got their own email stuff going on. They got their own search engine, stuff like that. And then Apple has an ecosystem, Google has an ecosystem. So a lot of these companies, their goal is to get you into their walled garden, get you into their ecosystem. And Apple's done a really good job of getting people into their ecosystem. And in fact, Apple was beefing with Facebook because Mark Zuckerberg got upset because Apple was not letting developers have access to the data that they needed for Facebook to be able to really fine tune its advertising strategy, right? So they can't get the data that advertisers want, so they can run their ad system. So he put out a full page ad in the New York Times criticizing Apple, attacking Apple, and every time he talks about Apple, he says something nasty about them. Like he'll say, they haven't innovated anything since Steve Jobs was alive, which is actually true. And that's because Apple has this wall garden that they're trying to protect. But right now, their garden, the companies with these walled gardens are now being hit with these antitrust lawsuits. So Google is being hit with an antitrust lawsuit. Apple is also being hit with an antitrust lawsuit. And so, for example, one thing Apple does is pretty gangsters. They charge 30% for anybody who's in their app store. Any revenue that they make, Apple says we want 30% of it. So the people that made Fortnite took them to court, and they're being forced to reconsider that. Also with Google, they're going to be forced to sort of change some things, and then also just giving competitors access to data and information. I think that's going to be coming down the pike. But then you've got people like Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook. The reason I'm a big investor in Meta is because Meta is doing some really innovative things in terms of trying to circumvent Apple. What they want to do is they want to get into your life. They want to get on your phone, your desktop, or whatever. And so with Meta, they've got these AR, VR glasses, the Meta glasses. And I think that they're trying to get to the point where they're moving beyond a phone. And so their argument is like, why you need a phone when your glasses can do everything? You can say, hey, Meta, film this. Hey, Meta, take a picture of that.